Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you the 5 things that I hate about Adidas, specifically in regards to soccer cleats / football boots. Now, just a quick disclaimer, I don't actually hate Adidas, but there are things about the brand that I don't care for as much, and that's what we're going to be focusing on in today's video. I did do the same thing for Nike as well, so if you missed that video, I'll leave a pop-up on screen. You can go ahead and check it out. But without further ado, let's get into the 5 things that I hate about Adidas. Laceless equals better. Now this is something that I could alone make a 20-minute video on, just ranting and explaining why I don't like this. It's something that I've been very opinionated on my channel ever since it was first introduced by Adidas, but I have to give them some props for convincing people through their marketing that this is legitimately a good idea from a performance standpoint, when in fact, it is the exact opposite. And that's the main reason why I hate this so much. Adidas, being the big brand that they are, having the long history in soccer shoes that they have, for good reason. They've been around and they're popular because they've always made very good, very innovative products. But now with this laceless system, not only is it extremely gimmicky, it legitimately is not as good as other top-end products out there. And being that they charge $300 for these things, be it the Pure Control or the Adidas Glitch to a lesser extent, that means that you can buy pretty much any shoe out there, but people are choosing, because of the marketing, to buy these laceless boots, which quite simply, from an objective performance standpoint, are not as good. And again, I don't know if it's because somehow people legitimately think that eliminating the laces across the top of your foot is creating better control on the ball or is going to allow you to control the ball better, or if it's because big name pros like Paul Pogba or Mesut Ozil are wearing these things, which by the way, they are paid to do so, and I can guarantee you that they're wearing custom variations of these shoes, not the version that you can actually go and buy in the store. But again, it's a very misleading thing, and I just don't like that a big brand like Adidas is to a certain extent taking advantage of people based on their marketing and having them spend this money on a shoe that they're being told is the best of the best from a performance standpoint, when quite simply it's not. Now, I've talked about why I don't care for the laceless system on the Pure Control and just laceless systems in general on the channel many times before, but for the sake of this video, let me explain. I don't like laceless systems for the simple fact that you lose out on all adjustability. The reason why shoelaces exist and the reason why it's not an obsolete technology is because it legitimately is the best way to adjust the shoe to the shape of your foot. Not everybody has access to custom shoes. In fact, almost nobody has access to custom shoes. So because of that, all of these shoes are a predetermined shape, and the likelihood of that shoe being the exact shape of your foot is very, very low. So with a lacing system, you can put that shoe on your foot, and then by way of the lacing system, section by section, make it tighter or looser as it needs to be based on the shape of your foot. The end result, when you pull that final knot, is a shoe that fits you as best as it possibly can, given the circumstances. With a laceless system, you put your foot inside the shoe, whatever system they have to hold your foot in place, hold your foot, and that's it. You can't make it tighter, you can't make it looser, and I can guarantee you that the way that that laceless system wraps your foot is not going to be as effective, as secure, or as close fitting as what you're gonna get from a shoe with laces. We actually see this firsthand from Adidas themselves with the current generation of Pure Controls. You have the 17 Plus and you have the Ace 17.1 Prime Knit. Essentially the exact same shoe at the base for the uppers. One has laces, one does not. And the one with laces fits so much better, performs so much better, is so much more responsive, but somehow people are still willing to spend an extra $100 to have an inferior product. It's something that blows my mind, and again, it's really misleading marketing on Adidas' standpoint, and that's why I'm really not a big fan of this. When you have this internal fastening system, it has to have some kind of an elasticated quality to it so you can get your foot in and out of the shoe. And because it's elasticated, because it's not 100% locked down and secure, like when you tie a knot in your shoelaces, when hard forces are applied, such as a quick lateral cut, a sprint, a sudden stop for a strike, you're going to have that internal system stretch, which means that your foot's no longer going to be locked in place properly, which means that your foot's going to move around, which means you're going to have a lack of stability, a lack of responsiveness, and again, issues that would not exist if the shoe simply had laces. So again, is laceless technology a good thing? At the moment, no, because it legitimately does not offer as good of performance characteristics as a shoe with laces, even featuring the same design, which, like I said, is currently available from Adidas. So until laceless technology improves to the point where it does offer some kind of benefit, which I don't necessarily foresee anytime soon, I really think that you should avoid laceless shoes in general. And I really hope that this is not something that, due to its current popularity, that Adidas tries to push out on their other models and make all their top-end shoes laceless, because again, from an objective performance standpoint, it just is not good. Using the same sole plates and stud patterns on every single line. Now, this is something that we've seen from Adidas kind of on and off. They got away from it a little bit when they introduced the X, the Ace, and the Messi line initially, but then pretty much immediately reverted back to what they were doing before. Now, what they have right now is a sprint frame sole plate on all their top-end models. Some have a heel counter attached, some do not. There's a little bit of variation with the ribbing through the midfoot for the sake of adding some rigidity to the sole plate, but for the most part, it's all the same plastic material, it's all the same thickness, and they all have pretty much the same level of flexibility and general feel underfoot. In regards to stud patterns, the layout is the same across the entire brand. The only thing that varies is the shape of the studs, which, in all honesty, that doesn't really change the experience all that much either. They all have pretty much the same sole plate and pretty much the same traction experience. Is this a bad thing? Not necessarily, but when you're a brand as big as Adidas is, you have to look back at their history a little bit. This sprint frame stud pattern layout was initially introduced in 2010 in the form of the initial F50 Adizero, and while that was a successful shoe, you can't tell me that a brand as big as Adidas has not done any kind of research and development on a new stud pattern since 2010. They really haven't changed anything. There were some differences introduced when the X, the Ace, and the Messi line initially first came out, but obviously with the second generations of that shoe, they've essentially gone right back to what they were doing before, and we're back at square one with having the same variety that we had in 2010 from the original F50 Adizero. Again, not a bad thing from a performance standpoint, but I think if you're gonna offer 4 different silos, the X, the Ace, the Messi, and the Copa line, it would be really good to have as much variety as possible from line to line. Each line should offer a fairly different experience, and that's not necessarily the case when all the sole plates and all the stud patterns are the same. Leather upper variations. If you've watched my channel for any significant amount of time, you've probably heard me complain about this before. With that being said, essentially what Adidas does is that when they design a new model, it's generally synthetic first. That tends to be the main version of the shoe that they advertise and release. And you can tell with that synthetic model, they designed it from the ground up. They thought of absolutely everything and were very careful with the design. With that being said, when that new synthetic model comes out, Adidas often likes to release a leather upper variation as well. And do they do the same process for the leather version? Very often they don't. What they like to do though is take that synthetic version, cut the toe off, fill it in with leather, and call it a day. You now have a leather upper variation of insert name of shoe here. And is this the best practice from a performance standpoint? No, not at all. It really doesn't offer a good leather shoe experience whatsoever. Do some people like this? Sure, but when you consider what you're actually getting for your money, which they often charge a $20 premium for these leather upper variations, it quite simply is not a good value, and you can get a much better leather experience at a lower price or just from another brand entirely. So the other thing that I don't like about this is the amount of leather that they actually provide. If it's just the toe, which is essentially a quarter of the upper, is it really a leather shoe? Is it going to provide a true leather experience when you're playing in the shoes? The answer to that question is quite simply no. If the majority of the upper isn't leather, I don't consider it to be a leather shoe. And that's not to say that Adidas doesn't have good leather shoes. The Copa Mundial, very solid option. Obviously, they just introduced the Copa 17.1, which is a majority leather upper as well, so I have no problems with those. But shoes like the leather upper variation of the X 16.1, for example, again, they took the synthetic upper, cut off the toe, filled it in with leather, and called it a day. Is that a good option as a leather shoe? I personally don't think so. And really the reason why I don't like this is because they kind of take advantage of consumers who don't necessarily know any better. People who are educated or boot enthusiasts, people that watch my channel are gonna see that shoe and be like, okay, I don't necessarily want that. If I really want a leather experience, I'll buy something like a Copa, I'll buy something like a Tiempo, I'll buy something like a Nike Premier. That's going to offer a more true leather experience. But to an uneducated consumer who just thinks they want a leather shoe and the leather X16.1 is what they see first, they're going to buy it with the expectation that they're getting a top-end leather product. And that, again, is not the case at all. Questionable takedown models. Now, this is something that I know some people will disagree with me on. Everyone's welcome to their own opinion, but take this from somebody who's worn pretty much all of the takedown models and top-end models from Nike and Adidas over the last 4 or 5 years. If you're comparing the $80, $100, $120 price points from Adidas as well as Nike, I would say 90% of the time, the Nike product at those lower price points is going to be better quality, offer a better fit, and just be a better performing product in general. And again, I know people who buy an $80 price point shoe, they're on a budget and they want something that looks like what ex-professional player is wearing, and they're happy with their purchase. And if you have an Adidas takedown model and you like them, that's great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But like I said, from an objective standpoint, being that I have the opportunity to try all of these shoes from all these different brands at all these different price points, I think at the lower price points, Adidas is not making the best quality products. And again, it's not even so much the materials, it's more so for me the fit. They've had so many questionable fitting shoes in the takedown categories over the years that it really blows my mind that these got a pass to be manufactured and sold in stores. Some of the F30 models that we had seen over the years were so bad. Some of the F10 models, so questionable. I couldn't believe how they fit, and I couldn't believe how people would go in the store, put these on, and say that that's the shoe that they want, just based on the fit. Forget about the quality of the materials. And that's something that, again, I have to criticize Adidas for, just based on my own personal experience in trying all of these products for myself. I think if you're buying a takedown model from Adidas, while there are some decent ones, and they are getting a little bit better, I think the Copa takedown line is pretty decent right now, but just be aware that if you're trying on an $80 price point shoe from Adidas, make sure you try on everything available at that price point, because based on my experience, at least historically, Adidas has not made the best quality shoes at the lower price points. Adidas, for being such a big company, has such an unclear direction in terms of how they progress and move forward with their current lines and their current models. What I mean by this is that when you look at, let's say, the X15.1, that was a complete redesign, something entirely new from Adidas. It had its quirks, but ultimately I think it was a fairly successful shoe for being a completely new design. When you compare the X15.1 to the X16 Plus Pure Chaos, or just the X16 generation, there's almost nothing that relates back to that original model. Now, I know Adidas went through a pretty big kind of overhaul when they decided to get rid of the Preds, the F50s, the 11 Pros, and the Nitro Charges, introducing the X, the Ace, and the Messi line. But again, when you go from one model to the next, it's something entirely different. And I don't want to criticize a brand for trying new things, for innovating, introducing new technologies, introducing new materials. That's ultimately how this whole soccer cleat market and industry continues to move forward and remain interesting. With that being said, I almost get the impression from Adidas that they're releasing these new models and these new designs and these new technologies purely based on shock value and what's going to be the most never been done before thing, regardless of whether or not it's better or worse from a performance standpoint. And that's something that scares me a little bit. The laceless thing can kind of fall into this, where they've introduced something that, yes, it's different, it has been done before, but not necessarily in a way that they've done it right now, and not marketed in a way that they've done it this time around. But is it legitimately a better thing for the sake of performance? No, and that's what scares me a little bit about their unclear direction moving forward. They almost seem like they've gotten to the point where, because they've seen this little bit of success because of this laceless innovation, that they're willing to just try something different for the sake of being different and not necessarily for the sake of progressing and creating a better performing product. And when you're talking about the industry moving forward, I think the goal should be products that perform better, materials that are legitimately better, technologies that are legitimately better, and not necessarily something that's just different because people are going to be excited about this different product even though it's not as good as what we had before. So that is kind of my criticism there, is that I really wish that we saw a more clear I guess, evolution from model to model from Adidas versus something that doesn't relate to the previous model whatsoever. Something might be good about it, something might be bad about it. But again, it almost seems like they're going more for shock value versus legitimately trying to make the best possible products. All right, guys, so that is it for the 5 things that I hate about Adidas. Keep in mind that these are all my personal opinions. I did my best to kind of explain my reasoning for all of these different points, but ultimately they are just my opinion. Yours may be a little bit different, and if it is, leave your opinions down below in the comment section. And if you have any questions regarding anything that I talked about in this video, leave that down below as well, and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all of my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.